The NFL has touted several great championship games over the years. And the word greatest can mean a lot of different things to different people. I'll be the first to admit that nostalgia, as well as being biased, can come into play when making this determination. But when we examine the history of the AFC Championship, there's one game that I will never be able to forget, or be able to forget the feeling that it gave me as a young football fan. That game is the 2006 AFC Championship game between the Indianapolis Colts and the New England Patriots. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new to the channel and hit that like button if you enjoyed today's video. To me, 2006 was a pinnacle of great football. You had the Colts finish the season at 12-4, as well as the Patriots finishing the season also at 12-4. To me, this represents the ultimate greatness behind both the Brady legacy and the Manning legacy. You had playoff loss after playoff loss for Peyton Manning, which growing up as a Colts fan was heartbreaking time after time. We saw Brady and the Patriots win so many of those games against the Colts, as well as Brady and the Patriots in general winning game after game in the playoffs, while the Colts could never seem to hang on and make it to the big game. There's just something special about that 2006 season that I'll never be able to forget. With the Colts starting off extremely hot, going 10-0, including a 27-20 Week 9 victory over the New England Patriots. This was a season where many experts predicted that the Colts may actually be able to go undefeated. They finally got upset by Tony Romo and the Dallas Cowboys in Week 11, and then went on to lose 3 games against divisional opponents before finishing out the season 12-4. Patriots, on the other hand, like I mentioned, were coming off a run of extreme dominance. But at the same time, they were dealing with a lot of internal pressure. You had the departure of Adam Vinatieri, Willie McGinnis, and Deion Branch, just to name a few. And not to mention, Adam Vinatieri would be signed to the Indianapolis Colts. Yet the Patriots, like they always did, finished off the season 12-4 and looked like the New England Patriots everyone expected them to be. These 2 regular seasons by 2 of the most dominant teams of their time would set up what I personally believe is the greatest AFC Championship game of all time. The Colts would beat the Chiefs in dominant fashion in the wildcard round. Despite Peyton Manning throwing 3 interceptions in this game, they still held a 19-0 lead by the beginning of the second half. The Patriots, on the other hand, would face the New York Jets and former defensive coordinator Eric Mangini, who had just became the Jets head coach in 2006. And Bill Belichick did what Bill Belichick does to former coaches in this game. Moving on to the divisional round, we had the strangest playoff game maybe of all time between the Colts and the Ravens. I'll never forget watching this football game. There were only field goals scored within this game by both teams, a defensive battle. Nonetheless, really, when you look back on it, it was a great playoff game, but at the same time, just extremely weird. The Colts would go on to win that game 15-6. On the other hand, the New England Patriots would face LaDainian Tomlinson, Phillip Rivers, the then San Diego Chargers, who were one of the best offenses in the entire league. This was the season that LT set all of those insane records, 31 touchdowns, most touchdowns scored by a running back in a single season to this day. This was a great divisional game, but the Patriots would come out on top 24-21. This would lead 2 of the greatest quarterbacks of all time to face off once again in a playoff game, setting the stage for what every Colts fan wanted and what every Patriots fan wanted. At the time, it would have given Brady and Belichick their 4th Super Bowl appearance. Nowadays sounds like nothing, but when you look back in time, that was monumental. And on the other hand, I want to give Peyton Manning and the Indianapolis Colts their 1st Super Bowl appearance under the Manning era. And I just can't stress, growing up as a Colts fan, how bad we wanted this. How many times we saw Peyton Manning lose in the playoffs, how many times we saw the Colts lose in the playoffs, and Tom and the Patriots win in the playoffs. Within this game, we would see the largest NFL conference championship comeback of all time. So the Patriots had eliminated the Colts twice in the last 3 seasons from the playoffs. Midway through the first quarter, we had the Patriots drive 71 yards to the Colts 4-yard line. 3rd down of this goal line play, we saw Lawrence Maroney fumble a handoff, and then the ball rolled into the end zone where offensive lineman Logan Mankins recovered it for a touchdown. So remember that. One score for an offensive lineman so far in this game. The Colts then responded by a 56-yard drive, which ended with former New England Patriot kicker, now Indianapolis Colts kicker, Adam Vinatieri kicking a 42-yard field goal. New England would go on to put together a drive and a score. Then just 2 plays later, quarterback Asante Samuel intercepted Peyton Manning, returned it 39 yards for a touchdown, giving the New England Patriots a 21-3 lead. Indianapolis would end up driving 80 yards, kicking another field goal, cutting the score 21-6 right before halftime. At halftime of this game, I'll never forget how completely demoralized I felt. I just had this sickening, sick to my gut feeling that the Patriots were going to go to another Super Bowl and kick my Colts, kick Peyton Manning out of playoff contention once again. But I also remember just having a glimmer of hope, and I knew there was no way I was turning off this football game. And man, I'll just never forget the events, the plays that transpired after halftime. On the opening drive of the second half, the Colts drove all the way down the field and scored on a 1-yard run by Peyton Manning. Who else other than Peyton Manning, who you never see run into the end zone, scores? And then shortly after, we had another astronomically crazy play where Peyton Manning threw a 1-yard touchdown pass to defensive lineman Dan Klecko. So that's 2 linemen scoring in this game so far. Right after that score, Marvin Harrison would score a 2-point conversion. This tied the game at 21-21. Those couple of drives really felt like time stopped for me. And I was just caught in this insane playoff game where I had nothing but hope for my team winning the game. And that's really what football is all about at the end of the day, right? Brady would go on to throw a 6-yard touchdown pass to Jabbar Gaffney, and this was a little bit of a controversial play where it looked like he was out of bounds, but it was still ruled a touchdown. This would give the Patriots a 28-21 lead. The Colts would drive the ball down the field, and guess what? Dominic Rhodes fumbled the ball at the 1-yard line, but nonetheless, Jeff Saturday, center for the Indianapolis Colts, one of my favorite players of all time, picked up the ball and scored. So that's 3 linemen, 2 offensive linemen, 1 defensive lineman who scored in this game. Jeff Saturday touchdown tied this game up at 28-28. Both teams would go on to put together drives where both kickers kicked a field goal, bringing the score to 31-31. Just an insane amount of anticipation by both teams, just an insane amount of drama within this game, keeping it close-knit, exactly what you want in a championship game. Patriots would then put together another drive which resulted in a field goal. This gave them a 34-31 lead with just 3 minutes and 49 seconds left within the game. Colts then found a way to move the football 70 yards within 19 seconds with a couple of penalties in their favor. Nonetheless, 3 plays after so, Joseph Adai would run into the end zone, giving the Colts their first lead of the entire football game with just 1 minute remaining. Now, this was essentially your worst nightmare as a Colts fan or as a fan of football rooting against Tom Brady. You give him 1 minute, you give him enough time to score, and that's all he needs, right? However, cornerback Marlon Jackson intercepted Tom Brady with just 17 seconds left. We'll never forget the feeling of that defensive play, finally sending my Indianapolis Colts and Peyton Manning to the Super Bowl. The Colts would go on to beat the Chicago Bears 29-17 in the Super Bowl, put together one of my favorite seasons of all time in NFL history. Make sure to comment what you think is the greatest AFC Championship game of all time or your personal favorite. For me, I'll never be able to forget the moment where I knew Peyton Manning had cemented his first ticket to the Super Bowl.
Intercepted! Colts are going to the Super Bowl. We have just witnessed the largest comeback ever in a conference championship game.